right, shalom everybody. Get ready to get started. Thanks for being on. Trying to make sure all these platforms are well. There's a couple platforms are on today. Hopefully you all are doing all right, doing well. We have our shorter session that we have in the evenings. Thank you for being on. Today we're going to talk about something that I think will be a blessing to many. I know will be a blessing to many, because we're going to talk about where revolution starts, how easy it is to start, so to speak. Everybody always has a lot of different, ideas of revolution and how we're going to get things together and all that stuff. But we are going to just look at some very simple things and have a quick conversation. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yehovah's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer. And it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being on once again. We appreciate your presence as we get ready to get into this message on this evening. Thank you for joining us yet again. Those who are joining us for the second time, those of you who we talked to during the day today, this will be several times that we talked to you. Nevertheless, we're thankful and grateful for everybody and for your presence. And once again, just starting to talk about something very simplistic, right? Where does revolution start? Where does revolution start? People saying we need to have revolution, we need to come out of this, we need to do this, we're going to revolt. Where if we're going to talk about true revolution, revolution doesn't start usually where the pages of his story has taught you that it starts. Revolution doesn't start where we normally think of it as. It starts in places that are usually a lot smaller, a lot more culturally sound. Once again, we give all praises to the Most High, Yehovah Elohim, for being on. We're thankful and grateful to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her on her pages on TikTok, YouTube, and her website at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, with the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Remember, the herb for the month is ginkgo, and she has other herbs that she gives to the community to help with healing. And those who are asking for things as far as consulting, things like that, to go through her business, feel free to contact her or contact myself, and I'll get you in contact with her. We're thankful for everybody taking time out once again to be with us. Shalom to everybody on the podcast. This is Sharice and others. Thank you to Minister Tamara, Brother Thomas, Anubis, Yosef, Deshima, Spanish Barb. Everybody, we thank you, we appreciate you. So that's a place that we could start off with, where we're talking about where the revolution, where is the revolution, where the revolution starts, right? Somebody said it starts on the inside, and that's true. Once again, the revolution usually starts in a lot smaller than places. In a sense, we can listen to our ancestor that said that the revolution will not be televised. People are looking for a place where somebody will show them where the revolution will be. And the reality is that the revolution starts in a lot of small places. First and foremost, is going to have to start with the cleansing of blood, even, so to speak, because we know that without the shedding of blood, there could be no remission of sins. But the blood that must be shed has to be legal. When people even speak about that scripture, without the remission of sin, without shedding the blood, there can be no remission of sins. People forget that first things first. We're going to be honest about that. That verse is talking about that bloodline had to be legal. If that bloodline didn't represent what it needed to represent, the sacrifice was of none effect. We believe in Christ and him crucified, in Mashiach, or the Messiah, the anointed one, in him, and him crucified, and him being physically manifested so that his blood could be shed. However, he had to have all the right bloodline in him in order for his sacrifice to be worthy, right? The same thing is happening with us, and we have to think about with us is that your blood, so to speak, what you carry, your heart that pumps out your passion. In Hebrew, the word heart doubles for the word passion. Your passion, it has to be something that is different. And so, first of all, we always have to deal with your passion. What are your passions based in? What culture are your passions based in? Things of that nature. When you talk about revolution, though, this is how deep it gets. When you're talking about cultural change can be something as simple as when you get ready to pick up your fork and your knife, right? Eating differently, causes you to think differently. Thinking differently causes you to it even causes, you know, things like your pineal gland and your emotions and your habits and things to change. The different things you would eat, the way you eat, the places you eat, the times you eat, how many times you eat, that causes revolution, right? How many times you're eating something is going to be something that causes you to do things different. Once again, my wife's TikTok is Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. If you need to, I think you can look through friends or people I follow, whatever. So you can look through people I follow, just look up Bloom and Flourish. You'll be able to find you. Look up hashtag Find Bloom, hashtag FINDBLOOM. So once again, revolution, it starts in different places. It starts even in the foods that you eat. It starts in, such as a man thinketh, so is he. Well, if you have a pineal gland that denies the ability for your mind to think, or for it to grab things from the spiritual realm, so to speak, and have it manifest into the spirit, you're going to be in a dangerous place, right? If you're not eating things that help as far as melatonin, somebody says sleep patterns. Well, melatonin is going to help you with sleep, which is really just dealing in melanin. If you're scatterbrained throughout the day, check out your serotonin levels. Check out foods that have serotonin in them. These are places that revolution can start a lot easier than a lot of places we are. If we're a community that talks about we can't do this, we can't do that, we don't eat correctly. Well, eat less. Eating less allows your body to have a lot more function to it, right? Eating things that won't cause diarrhea or constipation. Both of them linked to the same place as far as what's causing that, right? This is a place where revolution is able to start. It's a small place, so you think, but it's a huge deal. People are dealing with things as far as stomach issues. Think about even something as simple as, forgive me if this is something, I know it's around people's dinner time, so forgive me, but thinking about something as simple as, using the restroom, going number 2, defecation. Something like that can be the difference between somebody passing out and somebody not. A lot of people who are older, not even people who are older, it's people who are around my age, sit down to use the bathroom, and because they're dealing with constipation, it's too hard for them to have a bowel movement. They try really hard. Next thing you know, they feel like they're having an aneurysm, right? They pass out. I've seen this happen. Well, not seen it up close. I know of people who've had this happen to them, where they're using the restroom. Next thing they knew, they were in the hospital, passed out, fell out, hit their head on the floor, something along the lines, right? So those are things that have to, you have to start thinking about. Not just eat, so something that's small, even who you eat with, right? Breaking bread is something that's crucial. We've been taught that you should be eating on the go so much that you don't even eat with people anymore. Like, who do you break bread with? That's cultural experience, right? How often are we breaking bread with people who are like-minded, who eat what we eat? How many times do we sit down to eat with people who aren't going to eat what we eat, who don't think that it's necessary, who are against what it is or whatever, and then we try to figure out, man, I keep having problems with trying to eat healthy. I don't know what's going on. Well, you keep eating with people that don't eat like you eat. So we're talking about causing revolution. We're not even disciplined enough to eat with people who eat what we eat. How in the world are we going to have conversations with people who are like-minded like us if we can't even break bread with people that believe in our value system? Those are places that revolutions start. Revolution starts in the quiet space when everybody's asleep, you can't sleep, and instead of going to TikTok or YouTube, you pick up a book, right? Revolution starts in those quiet places. Revolution starts when everybody's asleep and you wake up early so that you can make sure you have an hour to meditate, an hour to study. People always say, I don't have enough time to study. Make time. If you'll make time for vacation, why can't you make time to study? Right? Discipline is where revolution starts. I'm sorry, Nuba said I don't eat at work functions. I don't break bread with people that don't care about me. I can definitely get that, right? Like, it's one of the biggest things, right? We oftentimes go to the biggest places, which are usually just consequences or the reality of decisions that we made. We usually go to those places first. People forget, before we talk about the fact that somebody's having sex with person or that person, etc., and what your sexual experiences are. We go straight there, and your energy and all that stuff, and energy vampires, all these terms that we have. First things first, have you even learned how to stop zapping yourself of energy? All right, like these are simple places where revolution starts. Right, simple places where revolution starts. We're so big to talk about, hey, let's make sure everybody's got a militia forum. Let's make sure, man. You hear people all the time, man. If we just got 1 million black people to come together, well, you're not going to have. That might not be something that you can have. But what about making sure the people that sit around your table actually sit around your table? How many times do you and your family eat together? And I'm not going to act like I have no guilt or anything in that. Right, like you can be busy, you can get into things before you know it. You're not eating together, or it's easy for one person to eat in a room with somebody else, especially now that we got devices and people are watching this and eating this and all this. But something as simple as your family, because if your family gets together and eats like they're supposed to, and then the family next door gets together and eats like they're supposed to, and then you guys every once in a while break bread together, that's easier than trying to be like perfect strangers who may not believe and know what you are, because not all skin folk is kinfolk, and believing that all these people had to, are going to come together like that. Like we have to come together within ourselves. Revolution is going to start in smaller places than you may realize. Revolution starts when your child is introduced to reality versus having to learn reality on their own when they get older. And thanks, babe, for being on. My wife, the Honorable Maya, is on. Once again, you can follow her at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. That's revolution starts there, where your children are different than other children. We're thinking that revolution starts with bloodshed. Revolution starts with your children's blood being clean, with them eating herbs that actually allow for them to have clean blood and clean cells, a mitochondria that works, right? And protons and electrons that are healthy. These are places that revolution takes place. And imagine now if a revolution was not just something where we're waiting on the date to start so that everybody can have this long conversation, this long war time or something like that. But imagine revolution takes place where, on a daily basis. Imagine revolution takes place on a daily basis. Every day, revolution takes place. Every day, we're eating together. Every day we're joining together. This is why platforms like this are important and powerful too. And making sure that we have stuff like this, not just me. I mean, we need multiple platforms where we're out in different places as far as social media. We need multiple platforms where people are able to learn and hear this stuff, because this is something we do daily. It's not something we just do every once in a while. We do this daily. Where every day we're able to get together and do this, right? Revolution takes place in the hearts and minds of it should take place in our hearts and minds all the time. So I mean, if you're gonna be I need you to stay quiet. But if you, or actually, this is TikTok. I don't know if you can be on TikTok that long. We put a part of it. TikTok doesn't like it when little children's faces show up. I forgot. But revolution takes place when my son is able to sit down and listen to me speak. Right? That's revolution. Right? I think, sorry, Anubis said, I think it's a survival mechanism. It's a changing situation, whether you know it or not. I don't remember what I was talking about. I'm sorry, Anubis. I really don't remember. But these are the things that we have to realize and recognize and make time for, That's why, I say to this one right here, and his mom really is the one that put it in him, cemented it, but he gets up, and before you get on the game or before you do anything else, before you start trying to do flips or whatever, what's the first thing you're supposed to do when you wake up?
Pray.
It's pray, right? That's revolution, because a lot of children are going to be raised like that. That also puts your child in a position that a lot of people aren't in. Their children aren't going to be in, right? Where they're not being developed anymore to think about prayer. They're not being developed anymore to think about lessons, They're not being developed. Like, he doesn't, and I'm not saying that, I know children should be fed differently than we feed ourselves. He doesn't have the habit of eating as soon as he gets up. He doesn't shove food in his stomach. Not because we taught him to do that or anything. It's because of a lifestyle, and we used to try and make sure he was eating all day or whatever, but he doesn't need it in order to function. And he's still the biggest and strongest. I'm 6'5.5", and he's still grown, where he's probably going to be taller than me, and he's taller than the other children, and he looks the 9 and 10-year-olds in the eye and stuff like that, and he doesn't have to eat first thing first, right? So he has a habit, or he doesn't have to break a habit that a lot of us are still trying to get over. That's revolution. It starts in places like that. It starts with him listening, even if he doesn't know every single person's name yet. We were listening to Dr. Laya Africa today. He says, "Oh, is that Dr. Africa?" And then we thought about it. My wife goes, "Oh, you know what? He heard. He was there when Dr. Africa came to town, and when we went out to see him live."
I remember that.
Right, and he can remember that. So he heard one of our ancestors who's passed, who's responsible for a lot of us changing our eating habits. He was being able to be present, right, at a young age, and he probably was only 2 years old, somewhere around there at that time.
2 years older than you.
No, not 2 years older than me. 2 years old.
Oh, 2 years.
That's revolution, though, right? That's something that he's going to, in a generation, he's going to have that experience that we didn't have. He has an experience where he's in a second property right now. He goes, back and forth between properties, and he was, raised in an apartment for a little bit, but pretty much the majority of his life is in homes. And when we go somewhere, he's used to being able to be taken care of by something that we are able to do as far as hotel or by others, and it's not something that's going to be weird for him. That is a generational type of revolution where we're raising a generation to be different. It starts in different places. It starts in different areas. The fact that he knows terms like ginkgo and ginger, and we were talking about, what were we talking about today? Ginger and what's the other one? We were talking about ginkgo. We were talking about ginger when we went to the store. We were looking at ginger and ginseng and having a conversation about what ginseng does for the male reproductive system, what ginger does for the stomach, which he already knows. The fact that he can look at certain leaves and be able to say, "Oh, that's an oak leaf," right? The fact that he's able to look at bark of a tree and be able to tell sometimes by looking at the tree, that's revolution. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's revolution. Those types of things are things that cause the change. And that's a way of fighting the system, fighting the great fight without having to go through the minutia of trying to make sure you always got to be ready to punch somebody in the face. Hey, shalom, Sister Beverly, how you doing? Minister Tammy says revolution starts with renewing the mind, drastic, far-reaching change in behavior and thoughts. Yeah, revolution is in real life. Like, here's some stuff that's small. Like, let me give you some better examples. I think some people might be thinking this is too avant-garde or something like that. We're dealing with accoutrement and not dealing with meat or things that are more substantive. Here's some things as far as revolution that you can think, or some easy ways. Like, you got to start thinking, for example, it's revolutionary to eat what's great for your body and not have to eat what's great for somebody else's. All right, you can go ahead and go upstairs. I'll call you in a second. So, here's some things that might, cause some people to look at some things differently. You should be trying to eat things that are for your body. Think about this. They want you, if you go to a doctor, everything you're going to right now, this is just simple revolution ways to take care of yourself. A doctor will tell you and I to not worry about herbs and not to go deal with people who deal in natural medicine. Correct? I was talking to my wife today, and I found it very interesting as we were thinking through some things, and as we were talking to Dr. Lai Africa. He didn't say this, but when I, really looked at the summation of different things he was speaking on, I said, you know what is interesting? The doctor will tell you not to go to a herbalist because the herbalist isn't qualified to talk about medicine because he's more qualified, right? And the doctor will tell you not to listen to somebody like myself or even my wife who has way more knowledge than I do. And they'll tell you, right, they'll tell you that they hate herbs, right? Check this out, though. When you go to the doctor, what does the doctor give you when he's giving you a pill? Not just chemical medicine. I want you to think simplistic. I want you to think very simply in this. When you go to see a doctor and they give you a pill, what is it that's in that pill? They're giving you a herb. The same doctor that says don't look to herbs for stuff, that's what they're giving you in the pill. The difference between the herb, right, and the difference between the pill, right, the herb in its natural form and the herb in the pill form or the chemical form, is that they focused on one part of the herb. They messed up the compound. And so you're not getting the holistic formula, so to speak. You're not getting everything the herb's supposed to give you if you were to just simply eat it raw. They're giving you a little piece of it, which is why, since there's no holistic stuff, you have side effects, because the side is missing, so to speak, right? So since you don't have the whole herb, you have side effects rather than just eating the whole herb. So reverse it. Here's revolution, something simple, right? Starting to look for it in simple places. Here's where you have to start to have the revolution in your mind. Instead of listening to the doctor who says, hey, they're not qualified to do what we do, start thinking to yourself, what makes you qualified to deal in herbology when you are not a herbalist and you're not trying to cure anything, and you don't give me holistic care? You only give me parts of care, which cause me to have side effects. The doctor is not qualified to deal in herbology. Why are you thinking that the herbalist is not qualified to deal in Western medicine? No, the doctor is not qualified to deal in your actual healing. That is when you start to have revolution. If see here, this is it's revolutionary, but it's a small place to begin, right? We have to start thinking sometimes in the smaller places. This is revolution right here. This changes your thought. Have you ever thought about this? If something is actually good for you, great for you, heals you, if something's going to heal your body, I want you to think about this. If something is going to actually heal your body, then you should be able to take it whether you're sick or not. That sounds simple. I need you to stay with me, though, because they messed this up, right? And I'm sorry, I know I missed some comments real quick. Let me just hit these comments. I think I missed a couple comments. Did I? Oh, maybe not. Oh, I'm sorry. Austin said, that's the truth. My docs discourage me from natural medicine all the time. Clarap says, it's like everything else, a little truth and error, right? Okay, so check this out. Check this out. Amen. All right, we're on the same page. Stay with, I'm sorry, Anubis says your body is consuming poison because we are not built to consume chemicals, but the chemicals allow. Okay, I'm gonna let you finish that. I'm gonna try to get to this, okay? And thank you for that, because I'm with you. Now check this out. Check this out. All right. Salam. Comment toi. All right. So if when we're dealing with this stuff, hear what I'm about to say. If the medicine that you got was actually good for you, you should be able to take it whether you're healthy or not. All right. Somebody says, so what? All right. If I have a problem with cancer and they say chemo is what's going to help me, right? Yeah, thanks, baby. Yeah, if something will heal you, yeah, it'll heal you all the time. Check this out. If somebody says that you're diagnosed with cancer and you take chemo, the chemo should be something that you should be able to take even when you're healthy, right? But you wouldn't have somebody take chemo when they're healthy. Why? Because radiation kills you. So radiation is not healthy. Radiation is not medicine. It shouldn't be looked at as such. But they've tricked people into believing that radiation is something that they should take. But you would never say to somebody, if nothing was wrong with them, especially, but if you shouldn't deal it then if something's wrong with them, right? But if something was just wrong with or somebody was healthy, you'd never be like, you know what, let's go ahead and get some radiation today. You would never say that to them, would you? Because it doesn't make sense. You would never say, hey, let's go ahead and go and get some needles and shoot some stuff, whether it's technology or whether it's dead viruses or viruses that are alive but they hope are dead or whatever. Let's just shoot them into our veins and see what happens today. Right? Yeah, it's evasive, right? Like they would never say, you would never say that. You never say, you know what, man, I think we should go ahead and just get our tonsils removed today. What you think? Right? You would never say, so you would never do that. You never be like, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and shoot a laser into our eyes today. Yeah, like Russian roulette, right? Like, let's do these things. But these are things that are supposed to heal you, though. But if it's something that's supposed to heal you, you should be able to eat it or digest it or partake in it at all times, whether you're healthy or not. Right? So, and here's the reverse. Really, see, once again, revolution, it starts in here. It starts with the small stuff. So why are we thinking that somebody who's healthy shouldn't take the medicine because it'll hurt them, but somebody who's sick should take the medicine because it will heal them? Why are we taking medicine that causes people to be addicted to it? Why are you taking pain meds that cause addiction? Why are you taking medicine that you're supposed to be taking a medicine that's going to help one part of your body, but it's destroying another part, and then come to find that it's not even helping the part that it was supposed to help? So you got to get on a stronger medicine to help the part that was supposed to help. Meanwhile, the other part that's all messed up, you got to, now you got to start taking something for that. And before you know it, you got a whole medicine cabinet. You got that pill box full of stuff where people are taking pill cocktails. They swallow pills more at the same rate. It's sometimes easier for them to swallow pills than it is for them to swallow liquid. Completely out of whack. My wife says if it makes you healthy when sick, it should make you healthier when healthy. Right? That revolution starts in the small places. Right? Revolution starts in the small places. Revolution starts in something as simple as being able to say, instead of having to always say hello, having to say Osayu, or I see you, or Aquaba. That's why some people say Hotep. That's why we say Shalom. That's why other people, because that's something small. That's taking your language. And somebody who keeps telling you how it's a detriment to you, see, in their culture, you being about your culture, in their civilization, you are uncivilized when you speak your culture. However, in your culture, you are civilized when you speak your culture. Understand, uncivilized just means you don't fit somebody's version of civilization. That's a small step. It's medication for what ails you. Right? Minister Nye says that's why I like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It helps always. Yeah, I haven't tried that before, but I've seen that a lot. Maggie says I always wanted to know how. More Precious said, dang, I never asked myself that question. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Also said because it's about money, most definitely. Yeah, there's never an answer. Right. Hardest revolution ever fought is within. Right. And that's where it's going to start. And really, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's easier than what we do. People will say stuff like, well, people can do that because they're more disciplined. I'm not disciplined enough. I can't do this. People who are on drugs are disciplined. You ever seen somebody who's on who's a crackhead or whatever? They will find a way to get crack all day, every day, come up with money that they don't have. They will do all types of stuff. They're going to be on time. They're only going to get a certain amount of sleep. They're going to be motivated, right? Because they're disciplined. It's not that hard to become disciplined in something. The hardest part is getting started. Once you've done something for a couple of weeks, you're halfway there and making it a habit. Take a month out. I mean, it's not a month left, but hey, at least for the rest of this year, what's one thing that you could just make sure you start doing every day? It's the small things that build into something greater. Revolution is going to start in the smaller things. I'm sorry, King says the main question I've asked always never gets answered. Why does Yapet? All right, once again, why? Okay, that's not what we're talking about, but all right. Welcome. I guess that's your way of saying hello. Why does Yapet claim to be the seed of Shem? The world may never know. Oh, okay, I didn't know where we were going with that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know what Yapet or Japheth or Japhet, etc., whatever spelling you're going to use does. That's why we don't teach that he is. Yeah, I'm sorry, King. I deal with trolls on there sometimes, so the language, I didn't know where you were headed with it, but I apologize for the assumption. Please forgive me. You know what they say about people who assume, so I'll take that one. I'll take that one on the chin. But yeah, basically, that comes from the fact, if we be honest, they were mistaught. Number one, real talk, they were mistaught. A lot of them, like, they think that they're reading the Torah or the Torah, and they're still reading the Talmud, Babylonian Talmudic principles. A lot of people don't know, but that's why the Revelation Road is important. Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:7, Revelation 3:8, Revelation 3:9, Revelation 7, Revelation 12, to remind us that not only are we chosen, we also have to recognize that people will try to do everything they can to say we're not. However, the Most High is going to have it set up to where people who disagree with us are still at some point going to have to realize He always loved us. And we have to first start within ourselves to comprehend that. Like, we don't need somebody else to tell us that we're okay because we live by their standard. That's revolution, right? That's small stuff, learning how to make your own fringes. That's revolution, right? Being willing to grow or to keep things about your culture. That's revolution. Being willing to stop worshiping God and serve Elohim. That's revolution. Knowing Barashit before Genesis, knowing Shemot before Exodus, et cetera, right? That is revolution. So, that's crucial. Is the book of Enoch important? The book of Enoch, the whole Bible is important, right? Now, and I say the Bible, I don't just say it was 66 books, but the book of Revolution, the book of Revolution, I guess you could say when you get the Bible under it becomes revolution. The book of I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going. The book of Enoch, all the books of the Bible, they are all necessary. The culture is more important than the books, though, because if you don't have the culture down, you'll read the book and completely miss it. I hear you, Minister Nice. We can try and get you some. Most def, they're really not that difficult to create, but if people want us to just get them to you, we can try and find a way where donations can be, if people want to get fringes for us or whatever. They really don't take that long. Matter of fact, I can make them myself, and I'm not even that great with arts and crafts, but I can make them myself. They're pretty simple. But if you're talking about the fringes you want sewn into shirts and things like that, we can possibly do something like that, but that would obviously not be as cost effective as just setting fringes that you can add and put onto the sides of things that you wear, things like that, or pinned to what you're wearing. Coming to terms with yourself is revolution. As we were talking about before, how do people control you? They take away self. If you have self-control, nobody controls you, right? Even the Most High says He doesn't want to control you. He gives you free will. He wants you to become interdependent and be in the kingdom and to be a fellow heir with Yahshua. So even He doesn't want to control you, right? However, if you take away knowledge of self, if there's no self and self-control, the only thing left is control. We've been talking about that for quite a few days now, right? Or at least 3-4 days. If you take away self from control, if you take self out the way, the only thing left is control. And many of us are controlled because we have no sense of self. We have no sense of our story. And when somebody says, all it takes, like, this is how much we hate self. All it takes is somebody to say, well, give us a credible source, and we lose our confidence. You know why? The reason why is due to the fact that when we hear somebody say credible source, we have been taught that means white. And white isn't even a real thing. White isn't even a real status. There's no people on the planet, unless you're completely albino, there's really no such thing as a person who's completely white. Nevertheless, that's what we believe when we hear, hey, what's a credible source? We think, oh man, can I find a white man that said it? And I'm gonna be honest with you, there's a lot of times where I find articles or things that are written by white people, and the reason is because our people are conditioned to where if I can't find a white person that will agree, then it's something that a lot of people aren't going to listen to, including my people, especially sometimes my people. So I've got to make sure I say, hey, Teddy Roosevelt said that, so that people will listen to what I had to say about sovereignty. Teddy Roosevelt can't stand black people, but I got to make sure that black people hear Teddy Roosevelt said it, so you can say, oh, okay, sovereignty must be a real thing. If I say that there were more than 46 presidents, there are actually 54 presidents, somebody's going to want to say, where did you get that from, right? Because we haven't revolted yet, and we actually become revolting in a sense if we're not careful, because it's like we got to have somebody else tell us, somebody else has to prove it, somebody else has to make it real for us. And the reality is I shouldn't have to go to somebody else who doesn't even like me to prove that what I'm saying is correct. However, that's what usually happens with people. We can even go to the point, if we want to, just looking at things, for example, think about this. People will say this all the time, going back to the small changes. I can give you something like I did a TikTok video today where I based off of a conversation I was having with my wife, and she was looking at getting was it Hawthorne?
Hawthornberry?
Yeah, Hawthornberry, and Hawthornberry's for the heart. And I was thinking about what I was listening to earlier about echinacea and golden seal, things like that. And I was like, you know what? Somebody could just take some echinacea and take it with Hawthornberry. And if you're dealing with lupus or cancer or what's the other one with the misshapen cells, babe? Sickle cell, etc. You could take that and it would take everything to the heart, to the blood, and then you would have echinacea basically pump through the whole body and be able to start healing from that. You know, you'd have to do it for a concentrated amount for a long time, you know, probably 2-3 times a day for a couple months, but you start to see change in your body, right? Now, I say that's something that's very true. You could look it up. You could see what I'm saying if that's true, etc., right? However, somebody would hear that, and you know what the first thing a lot of people would do? They would say, you know what? How do you know that that's going to work? Prove to me that's going to work. Now, the same person who says that, though, I could go ahead and give you a bag of Skittles. And you're not going to ask me, prove to me that these Skittles are any good for me. You'll just eat them. Right? Think about that. Think about the revolution that needs to take place in our mind. Like, I can tell you something that's going to save you money, save you having to go through radiation, save you having to do a lot of stuff, and you could just simply start to work on that and use it to be able to start your healing, right? Am I saying that's all? Maybe not, right? I'm just saying that's something that's proven. We know it works. We know the methodology. We have people have researched it. Our ancestors have used it on every level. We know that this is something you should do. And instead of us doing that, somebody would be quick to question, because it's not Western medicine type culture, Eurocentric type culture. Somebody would be questioning you every step of the way before even attempting. Before they would even attempt to go it, before they would even think about going to the store and getting it, using your source, giving you maybe a fraction of the finances that they might need to donate to you for your giving them that or whatever, and working with them and watching over it and doing. They would totally question you on every step around the way. Meanwhile, though, somebody else will say, hey, I'll give you this bag of Skittles, and everything about that bag of Skittles is death. Everything about it, but you will eat it without somebody. Matter of fact, let's take it to the same level. Somebody would say, same thing we were talking about earlier. Somebody will say, hey, I'm going to give you this thing that kills you. You know, if you put a fish in radiation in the water, it kills fish. If you put radiation in the air, it kills people, right? If you put radiation in warfare, it's a war crime. It's illegal. If you put radiation in warfare, it blows countries to smithereens, right? Like, it annihilates people. But somebody says, I'm going to put it inside your body, and you won't even question it. But somebody else says, hey, here's a healthy alternative, and people won't question, because we've been taught, we've had the paradigm. I don't even know if the paradigm's been shifted. We didn't even have time to develop our own paradigm, and once again, we learn no knowledge of self, and because there's no self in self-control, there's no self-control. The only thing left is control. That's because we've been taught this. That's the system we live in. I'm sorry, King said that's so true, especially with the black men telling history, the white men approval is in control. It's felt all the time. So there's a lot of times when I'm putting stuff together and I start thinking to myself, okay, I need to have at least a couple links that are going to have white men, usually white men, because they don't pay attention to white women. Nevertheless, though, usually I got to find a white man. Somebody's going to say, you know why? Because if a white man has agreed on it, then a black person, unfortunately, will usually say, okay, cool, now I can start listening to it. So I even have to find white men who will say the same thing. Like, I have to find white preachers. I've done this before on the other, Kofi Ofori page. I had to find a white preacher that would say, hey, black people are chosen, and you better watch your mouth when talking about them. And now all of a sudden, all these black people are talking about amen, hallelujah, and stuff like that on there. I'm like, where were y'all at when it was a black man saying the same thing? Why'd I have to find a white person? But it's because that's the system we're in. That's that Willie Lynch syndrome that still is lingering. I'm sorry, Nuba said the truth is much funnier than fiction. The skills term is so true. Yeah, my wife said it's worth a try, especially since there are little to no side effects. Right? Yeah, there you go. The Shema says we have to prove ourselves to our own people before they take our word. Then they'll go ask another race, yeah, because they've been trained to. You were trained to, by the way. Like all of it. If you went to school, what do you think school was? What do you think your IQ test was? Who do you think's like the intelligence quotient? In other words, like intel, the information you hold, and then quotient. We're trying to see how much of it you have or whatever. So I know that's not exactly it, but that's a working definition, right? So when you're taking intelligence quotient, whose intelligence is it? So like when you hear this, and look, I'm not mad at it. I'm glad that there's young black boys. We keep hearing these young black girls and black boys who are coming out and they're getting these high IQ tests at young ages and they have higher IQs than Einstein, and that's great and everything. Question is though, like, is it their intelligence, is their community's intelligence, or is it somebody else's? So even when this person gets the higher intelligence or higher IQ than Einstein, everybody's like, that's so amazing. Question is like, can they tell you anything about their culture, or is everything based off of somebody else's? Because if everything's based off of somebody else's, then they're going to be in the same system. They're going to be the same people. Like, I need you to understand, and I'm not trying to down our people, right? I just want to be honest. A black person getting a doctorate degree is a black person that had to learn 99.9% of the time. A black person with a doctorate degree is somebody who learned everything else that a white person learned, right? Somebody says, I got my doctorate at HBCU. If you got yourself a doctorate at the HBCU, HBCUs are still accredited. Maybe not all of them, but they're accredited and they're still teaching the same thing. The teachers have to teach you the same stuff, and other people have to say that they agree with what they're teaching at the black school. So,
Most HBCUs are started by white people.
And most, a lot of HBCUs are not, well, not all of them, but most HBCUs, yeah, my wife brought up a great point. Most of them are even started by white people. Matter of fact, you go on certain campuses and they'll have pictures of white people on, and not pictures of, but I'm talking about statues, big statues in the center of them of white people. Why? Because it was white people that funded it. Now, in some cases, can we say we could be thankful for that? Sure. Right. However, I'm just trying to tell you that it's still white savior complex, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Also said, but people need to also change their eating habits. Taking herbs alone won't heal you. Well, that's true, but once again, you change your eating habits. So like we said, yeah, you change your eating habits. So it's not a thing of like you eat everything exactly the same that you're eating. You eat the same amount of candy and everything, and then you eat some herbs. The herbs will help, but they'd be more effective if you just ate herbs, right? Not having the fake sugar or the bleached sugar, the white sugar, things like that. It'll help a lot more, right? So yeah, but that's what we're talking about. It starts in the small places. Eating less is a small place to start. It's a hard place to start, though, isn't it? For a lot of people, right? But it's a small place to start. But it becomes a great thing, being able to say, I don't have to eat. I mean, legit, I'm 6'5.5", and that used to be an excuse I would use to eat as much as I can. Just say, hey, I'm a big boy, so I just eat, right? Like, that's not an excuse. But knowing as somebody 6'5.5", that sometimes I eat less than somebody that might be 5'6". I'm sorry to use, I just used a specific, I didn't mean to use. I was trying to talk about, I ran into a guy. Where were we at? Was it I guess it was a jump park or something? And the guy was trying to talk to me for a tiny bit about something, and he was talking about eating, and I was just like, oh well, I don't eat that many meals a day. I still eat too much. What do I eat? Like maybe like twice a day now.
Yeah.
I had it down to where I was eating once a day, so I need to get myself back on track. But and I used to not even eat until, 1 or 2, something like that, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And that would be my one time. I'd have a big meal, but that was, one time, and that was it. And was eating things, made sure I was, still able to use the restroom and everything, and function and everything. And I was doing well. I allowed myself to get out of pocket and got on some bad stuff again, especially when we travel. It's real easy when traveling to get offline. But I was talking to the guy, and it was just a brief conversation, but I laughed because it was to myself. I didn't laugh at his face, but I was just sitting there like the guy was saying, oh yeah, I got this breathing problem, this and that or whatever. He was talking about the doctor says I need to stop having this for breakfast, but then he was like, the doctor says I need to stop. I shouldn't have this much of this at lunch, and then when I eat dinner I probably shouldn't have this, and then if I need a midnight snack I should. And I just started like listening to it. I'm like, the doctor's not even telling you maybe you shouldn't eat that much. little. I don't want to guess. I would say I would say he was probably a little Mexican guy, by the way he sounded and the little accent he had. Nevertheless, I was just kind of, and we only talked for like 2 minutes, I think at max. But he was just talking about stuff, and I forget how we even got into it. It's always interesting when you live a certain life. People come, when you have a call on your life and stuff, you end up talking to people about stuff you swear you don't know how in the world you you end up talking to them about stuff. Today somehow, in some way, we started talking about Naruto with some guy. Well, no, my son caught the guy was wearing. So, anyways, though, and somehow, some way, I started talking to him about something else about, not needing to watch as much television, some other things. But you long story short, like, revolution starts in the small places. Even in that, think about that, how doing something as small, you might think of it as small, like I don't eat as much, or something as small as like I don't watch as much television, but that, puts you in a position where you can have that conversation with the next generation or somebody else. Minister Tamer said we ask doctors no questions and take whatever they scribble. Very true. Chosen One says, where did you start to understand Torah? Studying, listening to certain people, taking time out to learn it, going and learning, some basic stuff, like learning some basic stuff as far as characters. When I learned that there were 22 characters instead of 26 characters, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Then finding out there were 27 in the Greek, which means that we don't even read the alphabet that we think we do, because we don't read the alphabet. The alphabet's Greek and we don't even know how to read it. Then learning that there was ancient English, and ancient English, they switched consonants around, and then going back to Hebrew and realizing that each character of the alphabet actually has a meaning, and then starting to put stuff together like Yahava or Achaba or Barashit, or all these different terms that we give even on the live sessions, and starting to be able to be like, man, some of this stuff is basic, but if you know, like Barashit, the first word of the Torah, the first word of our culture, the first word of the kingdom, the first word of creation, when you learn this first word, you already recognize and realize, man, like I'm already already like, like when I learned that, I learned so much. Like I learned I learned it's in beginning. I learned that Genesis is not actually the first word of the Bible. You learn that you have to have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You learn that that the cross is already being looked at well before you even get to Yahshua, let alone the Council of Nicaea. You learn like so much stuff, right? So just learning little basics like that, the more I learn, the more I realize, man, that this isn't just something that's mystical or spiritual only anymore, where we look at it as a mystical thing. It's not mythical either. It's practical. And then when I started realizing, well, oh, wait a minute, the Bible speaks about equity. Why have I never learned about equity? Right? The Bible speaks about talents and vision and doing things every day, purpose, and making sure that you value yourself, and where you're headed. Why does it not tell us that? The Bible tells us stuff about that we should make sure that we're qualified to be husbands and wives before we get married, rather than get married and then hope that we become good husbands and wives. Like, this is simple, right? But it's necessary. That's culture. Those are small things. They cause revolution. And now my goal is to try and share these things. Shalom, Alan. My goal is to try and share these things with others, because it caused change in my life, and it caused me to have, I say this all the time. I hope my wife, well, she said she believes me when I said this. I told her that I don't, she agreed with me. I said that I told her, well, I said this when we got married too, for everybody. I said, I don't know, because I know I don't deserve you, but I wanted to work the rest of my life. And she was like, yeah. I think she said it jokingly, but she's like, yeah, that's about right. Like, yeah, you don't really deserve it. But I don't really feel like that though. Like, I'm sorry, I really do feel like that, and sometimes I'm learning that I'm getting better and greater for her. But those are things that are there. Like, I learn these things in culture. It helps me to humble myself. It helps me to work, to work more diligent. When my wife, who doesn't, that's one thing I think men forget sometimes. Like, your wife doesn't have to submit to you. By free will, she does. Just like you don't have to submit to the Most High by free will, you do, right? And when you don't, like, if she chooses to do that, it humbles you. You know, like if you recognize that this is a woman who is intelligent, this woman, you know, had finance before I showed up, had vehicle in line, you know, wasn't really worried about somebody having to do this whole sweeper over her feet, but she was looking for something that would establish her, and she was looking for a husband, not just anybody, but was looking for a husband, and she expects stuff out of you because of that. You know, it's always interesting that men will get mad, be like, you're not listening, you're not doing this, you know, you're not just giving me vision of this, or I tell you what it is and this, that, or whatever, you know, like you don't have a vision plan. Like, you know, every day your wife says, what do you think about this? And you say, oh, nothing, right? Like, well, you keep telling me nothing. Like, what's the vision? What's the vision plan? What am I supposed to follow? Like, that's a small thing, but it causes so many different things like that. Well, Bart, let me just say this. There's some stuff I would really like to say to you, but I'm not the same person I would for you to say that in the manner that you did when I'm speaking about my wife. It shows that you disrespect women, that you are a disrespectful person, that you're probably a hateful person in some way, shape, or form. And if I'm talking about my wife and you could dare try to insinuate some better intelligence, I just have to let you go. So have a great day. I wanted to say something else, but I'm not going to say what I wanted to say. Do I believe Yahashua was hung on a cross or a tree? I believe in Badashit. Badashit answers that. Badashit, the first word, if you look at the characters, the last characters, the 22nd characters, is the Tav, and that's the Tav. Look at what a Tav is. The Tav is on its side like that, and the characters of Badashit are the son who comes out the right family, it comes from the source and is one with the Father, who is our head, will be destroyed, being led by the hand of Yah to the Tav, the mark, the cross. So I just believe what the culture and what the word says within itself. I just believe what it says. Now we want to go into different versions of what different words mean as far as crucifixion. Some people want to say he was on a pole. Some people want to say he was on a cross. Some people want to say he actually hung from a tree, because cursed is any man that hangs from a tree. But if it was wood that was put together, there would be a tree that he hung from, right? So, and even the word tree, like you have to be careful with that. It's like when people say the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of the tree of life, right? Understand that the word tree there doesn't even mean tree. That's what they're putting in English. The word there is just talking about something that's vegetation. It's talking about a herb. So we don't know what herb it was that they ate from or whatever. That was the knowledge of good and evil. Even knowledge of good and evil is translated into them thinking they knew more than Yah, and the tree of life or the herb of life. We don't know what it is. Right, but we know that but we use the term tree because of somebody else's culture. So we get into these weird dynamics. But once again, it's about revolution. Revolution starts in the small places. Before we even get to the bigger places, see if we can start in some small places as far as respect, as far as love, as far as what you eat, as far as your discipline, as far as can you wake up early, things like that. Chosen One said, I tend to listen to Psalm 119 in Hebrew and feel different from listening to Bible. Well, Psalm 119, just going by Hebrew characters, is a whole different experience. If you know Psalm 119 is about Hebrew characters, Aleph is the first 8 verses. Aleph is talking about the Father, the source. Beit is the next 8 verses, verses 9 through 16. That's talking about the Son who has to come out the right family. So now you can hear it even in a prophetic manner leading up to the birth of Yahshua HaMashiach. Gemal, talking about a camel. They're talking about humility, right? Talking about even, so now you read that, you have a different concept of it. Dalet, talking about the door. So you read that, you've got a different mindset concerning it, right? So, but, when you say you listen in Hebrew, if you know Hebrew and you can listen to it in Hebrew, that's great. But, if you're saying just the sound of it feels different, sure. I would say see if it's paleo versus modern. Nevertheless, though, I get that. I can grasp that. There's a comfort in that, in hearing something that's closer to your culture than somebody else's. Nevertheless, though, revolution, it starts in different places than we might think. It starts in the small places. So we appreciate everybody for being with us. Thank you so much. I'm going to take my leave, and we appreciate you all. Thanks for listening in. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, a.k.a. the Shadow Band. I'm sorry. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi. I'm going to stop saying that. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi here. And Pastor Servant to Christ, where we're always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Please take time out, please, ma'am, please, sir, to check out once again my wife, the Honorable Maya, Bloom and Flourish, that A-N-D but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, and her website. And we're thankful and grateful for you guys doing that with us and being part of that journey with us. Remember, the tincture of the month is Ginkgo. Yeah, I believe that's it for tonight. So thank you all. We'll be back on 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We'll be back on tomorrow evening as well, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. And until I have the next opportunity and chance to be before you, as always, please make sure that you not just heard this word, that you study it and pray about it, meditate on it, so that you can do what it is that we've talked about. And make sure that you continue to push ahead, finish strong. This is our year of pursuit, where we're going to pursue the promises of the Most High. So hashtag finish strong. And this is our year of pursuit. And we're thankful and grateful to you for doing so. Thank you for your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, even donations, things that you've given us, whether donating time or different things like that. We appreciate you all. Remember, new classes are going to be coming up in January. So if you want to make sure you set those classes, set some time aside for those classes, we'll make sure that we get to you ASAP. Thank you again. And as always, remember that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.